While tickets to the National Museum of African American History and Culture are hard to come by, there's a place with the same kind of history right here in Wilmington, thanks to the Delaware Historical Society. And this week's First Look will take you inside the Center for African American Heritage, which is now open to the public.
Delaware is a small state, but we have a rich history here.
Connie Cooper of the Delaware Historical Society is one of many who came together to work on several exhibits designed to tell Delaware's story.
When you read books about American history, in terms of general American history, often the Delaware story is not included. Yet Delaware's history is rich. It's fascinating. There's all sorts of interesting people, interesting stories.
African Americans are certainly among many of those interesting stories that Cheryl Gooch brings to life in the Journey to Freedom exhibit, which chronicles 377 years of the African American experience in Delaware, from 1639 to now.
This is not a new story, but this is something that's often overlooked. It was here in Wilmington that the Beulah and Belton cases had a very significant impact on the landmark decision Brown versus Board of Education that led to the ending of legal segregation in public schools in the United States.
In addition to the role Delaware played in education, you'll also stumble upon some powerful images, such as the symbol of the kneeling African in the middle of the Declaration of Independence.
It's intended to provoke questions, encourage more discussion, and hopefully discovery. So I'm hoping that we will cultivate people's desire, young and old, to learn and relearn in some cases.
When I first walked in, I had an overwhelming feeling of seeing so many of us.
Beverly Roy, along with her brother James Roy and his wife, were impressed during their visit, but one exhibit hits close to home. That's because it included memorabilia donated by the Roy family.
Those are World War II medals from my dad. Specifically, one was from the European African Middle Expedition, the other one from the American campaign.
And the list goes on. Roy's father was a sharpshooter who served as a supply clerk in the military, driving a vehicle similar to the one pictured here. Roy also donated his mother's yearbook and pictures from his Newark neighborhood, and they're all on display at the museum.
For me, it was important to preserve the legacy of my parents, but more important, to try to preserve the legacy of the community from where I'm from.
In the museum, there's also a piece of Delaware history that many may not be aware of, and that's a story that focuses on peaches.
At one point, from about the 1830s through about 1900, Delaware was the nation's leading peach-producing state.
Then there's the story of the railroads in Delaware.
Well, African Americans did work on the railroads here in Delaware. The materials we have are from William Furrow. He was a World War I veteran. Served, of course, in the segregated forces, and then he came back and worked for the Pennsylvania Railroad for his career. He was active in the Union, and he was also active in civil rights activities.
His story and other exhibits all motivated some people to circle around the museum twice.
As much as there is in the exhibitions here, it's just the tip of the iceberg of Delaware history. There's so much to learn, so much to experience, so much to think about.
According to Scott Lair of the Delaware Historical Society, $7 million of renovations was well spent, making this new attraction a perfect addition to the arts theme in Wilmington's downtown district.
We bring that cultural aspect, the cultural resource, along with the Grand, the Queen, and Christina Cultural Arts Center. We give people reason to come down here to visit a museum, take in a show, eat dinner, perhaps consider living downtown, the urban experience. We're just part of that rich mix that's going to make downtown very successful, the revitalization of downtown very successful.
The Delaware Historical Society, which preserves and presents pieces of Delaware history, has been around since 1864. The renovated space includes about 9 sections dedicated to African Americans and about 6 sections with themes that are important to the state of Delaware.
And there was a bit of a power struggle about getting this thing built, about where it would be placed.
Yes, some Delawareans felt the museum deserved to be in a residential space, but former Mayor Jim Baker was very supportive of the Delaware Historical Society taking on the responsibility to present the African American experience here in Delaware.
And speaking of Mayor Baker, he's sort of an amateur historian of his own, in addition to being mayor for 3 terms. He's contributed somewhat to the museum?
Yes, Baker donated his large, extensive collection of album covers from black jazz musicians, including one from Wilmington's own Clifford Brown.
We'll have to check it out. Thanks again, Nichelle. You can get a glimpse of the story again by going to our website, newsworks.org/Delaware.